Hey, good afternoon, Usher Komugisha.
Good afternoon to you too.
Yeah, you are quite known in Rwanda, Uganda, East Africa, on the continent, and now globally, if I dare say so. How did the journey begin?
Well, I was born in Kilembe, which is in the western part of Uganda.
Okay.
It's a small copper mining town on the foothills of Mount Rwenzori. Mount Rwenzori is the second highest mountain in Africa.
Okay.
It's a very beautiful place, with my family obviously. Good neighborhood, I must say. And so many people around us, literally. So I was exposed to different people or personalities or nationalities from a very young age, and that opened me up to see the world in a different perspective. But to be very specific in terms of sports journalism, I cannot say that I set out to be a sports journalist, but when I look back at the way I was raised, everything that happened in my life led up to me being a sports journalist. For instance, I learned so many languages from when I was a child. Just being able to fit into society. You go to school, obviously, you learn how to speak English, but because you're trying to get to know people better, you also learn their language, they learn yours, and you meet each other midway. But also I played sports from a very young age. My parents used to go every Tuesday to attend the Rotary meetings at the Kilembe golf course, and I would walk around the golf course, just to play around as a kid, and I got to learn about golf. I used to run, do track and field. Netball was popular, is still popular at this point in Uganda. Volleyball, cycling. My dad bought me a bicycle when I was a child, and basically my mom, my dad, my parents, they allowed me to explore when I was a child, so I can do anything and everything, and they raised me like a genius, I should say. So I was always the best in class. And on top of studying in school, at home my parents used to go through conversations where I can think. Read something, yes, but can I think about it? Can I internalize it? Can I comprehend? And also I was greatly influenced by my parents, who bought me books from when I was young. So I used to read a lot when I was young, until now anyway. I remember, some of my biggest influences were Nigerian writers.
Really?
Obviously, Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, great book, in our household. Hour of God. Yes, you can literally think about anything, Wole Soyinka, but also generally some Kenyan authors as well. And obviously Okot Piptek, who wrote the Song of Lawino from Uganda. So I used to read a lot of that, but also when I was growing up, when I was eating on the table, I used to read the Atlas. So I would look at all the capital cities, remember their names, and tell myself that I want to travel the world. I want to go and see all these countries before I'm 40. So it's still a dream I have. And then I also used to read the dictionary. Yes, phonetics basically. Read a word, understand where it comes from, what is the meaning, but how do I pronounce it properly? And I still have an aunt, Auntie Sophie. She's into literature and English, and she would guide us in more ways than one. Thank you. And just get us thinking and reading books and things like that. And for me, that was very important in my career.
Interesting. So you made mention of sports and women in sports. So women in sports journalism is quite popular in the world. And in some regions in Africa, but not really in East Africa. Why did you decide to go into sports journalism as an East African, knowing the numerous challenges there?
So I can tell you that I didn't choose sports journalism. Sports journalism chose me. Why do I say that? One day I was seated at church. It's called Watoto Church in Uganda. Yeah, it's formerly called Kampala Pentecostal Church, but it's now called Watoto Church. 3 p.m. afternoon, taking my nice yogurt. It was very hot and I really needed just to relax, watching the traffic on Kampala Road. And a gentleman just came and sat next to me and told me, he started basically to talk to me. And as we spoke, he sounded like I should know him. So I was wondering, why does he think that I should know him, in my head. And then later he introduced himself. And he said that he was a radio host a show host radio on Power FM, which is the biggest Christian radio in Uganda for the Church of Watoto. And so when he mentioned that, he told me the people that he works with, Max Ali and Joseph Kableta, he was called John Kusolo. And I said, wow, I know them, because these are the best journalists in Uganda. And so he said, I'm talking to you right now and I feel like you have a very good voice. It can be a good radio voice. So I told him, forget it. I've never thought about being a sports journalist. But I play in the league. At the time I was captaining the Makerere University team called Sparks. I told him I can send you information and you can read it out on your radio show. And so he told me, no, you should think about it. So after 3 weeks, I came back and I told him that I want to see what it's like on the inside of a radio. Because when I was growing up, Capital FM, which was the biggest radio at the time and was very influential in terms of countrywide coverage, I used to listen to it a lot. And so I said, maybe I should just go and see what happens inside the radio. Sure. Anyway, so I got there and, Max Ali was like, very good evening. It used to be between 6 and 7. Good evening to all the listeners. Welcome to Touchdown. It was called Touchdown. Today we have a visitor and her name is Usher Komugisha and she's going to tell us everything about basketball. I said, hey, gesturing to him like, why are you saying that, I'm not here as a guest, I'm just here to see. So he said, don't worry, when we come back from the short break, blah, blah, she'll tell us. So in the break, he told me, relax, it's a radio, no one is seeing you, just assume that you're talking to us here, and we're just 3 people. So I calmed down a little bit, of course I was also panicking. Then I started to speak about the league, and then he said, look, you're very good, you should come back to our weekend show. So there was a show from 10 to midday. And so I started to go for this show. Then with time, one of them, Joseph Kableta, who is now a retired sports journalist but became a pastor, he said, you should think about writing. We don't have women that write about sports in Uganda. Like, we don't really have them. So I said, okay, that's not a bad idea. So I went to New Vision, which is the biggest newspaper in Uganda in terms of the newspaper sales that they make. And when I got there, I found Louis Jadwong, the editor. And he told me, okay, so what do you want to write about? I told him basketball, because I play basketball. He said, no, we already have someone who's writing basketball, look for something else. Obviously, there were so many people writing about football and anything else. So because I was in the university at the time, I told myself, look, maybe I should go and write about university sports. So coincidentally at the time, just literally that week, there was the national inter-university games in Uganda, in Kumba, in Entebbe, and I was going to be there. So I went and covered the tournament, wrote the stories, and that's how I made my newspaper debut. So once I did that and the tournament was done, there was nothing else to write. So I decided to think smart. Maybe I can go and profile a player, a university student who plays in the league. So slowly by slowly I'll get some news here, maybe something is coming up, and then like that. Now the sports tutor at the time, who is still the sports tutor of Makerere University, Penina Kabenge, had an opportunity and she told me, you need to apply for this. So the International Sports Press Association, which brings together all the sports journalists across the world, the AIPS, had a program where they were bringing together young reporters from across the world. And they also partnered with the International Federation of University Sports, FISU, to invite young journalists to China for the World University Games in 2011. So 10 years ago. And when they did that, we were 2 that were selected from Africa on the FISU side. So a Senegalese girl, Sene Diakonda, and I were selected to go to China. So off we go. Representing an entire continent, we are very excited and we are ready, for this challenge. So when we get there, we were trained by, people from FIFA, the IOC, FIBA, International Softball Federation, whatever you can think about, and we're taught to write unique stories. So these stories are not really Nigeria has beaten Cameroon. No, they're unique stories about the athletes. What is their story inside the story? And I was writing stories about, for example, the food in the dining hall. They had 6,000 dishes, very, very Chinese-like, because they love to pay attention to detail. So you had an African Caribbean section, an Asian section, because what is Asian food? You can't say that Asian food is Indonesian, it's Japanese, it's Chinese, it's Indian, it's Sri Lankan. All of them are different. So it's the same, even for Africa. Like we had a chef, from Kenya who was making ugali and smawiki. There was one making egusi soup, So it was a very unique experience, and I wrote about it. Now, at the end of that, the AIPS president, Gianni Merillo from Italy, said he felt that I was very extraordinary in the entire program, and so the following year they invited me to go to the London 2012 Olympics. That's when my international sports journalism career, literally. When I covered the Olympics here, look, I was interviewing people that I used to watch on television from when I was young. I'm talking Serena Williams, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray, Usain Bolt. Anyone you can think about, I interviewed them. And that for me was life-changing, because here I am as a 24-year-old covering the Olympics. From where I come from, even if you go to the Olympics in Tokyo, you will find 50-year-old journalists. It's impossible, close to impossible, to find a young journalist covering the Olympics. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I grabbed it with my hands, and I decided that this is my make or break. So I covered that for the IPS. It set the ball rolling for me. When I came back, I decided to change a few things. So I had done radio, I did writing, so I decided to do television. So I went to NTV in Uganda, started to intern for 3 months, got into the system, understood how do you film, how do you edit, how do you write a script, how do you present, how do you report in front of a camera, filming yourself, by the way. And once I learned all these things, then after the internship ended, I had about a month or two to relax, and then I went to cover the Zone 5 basketball tournament in Burundi. So when I was there for a week, got finished, I had to go back to Uganda, but on my way, because I had traveled by road, I had to go through Rwanda, but my childhood friend was getting married here in Rwanda, in Kigali. And so I decided to attend her wedding and then go back. So the day before her wedding, there's something called kasiki, it's a night, maybe like a send-off party, whatever you want to call it. I met a friend, and this friend of mine asked me a question: why don't you work in Rwanda? So when I told him I don't have a job, he said, give me 24 hours, I can find you a job. So he made a few phone calls and got me a job with Rwanda Focus, which was a weekly newspaper. When I met the owner at the time, Shaka Kamini, he asked me, he didn't even ask me for a proper interview, he just said, come, let's talk. He asked me about the Premier League. He's a fan of Chelsea, I support Manchester United. We already had a conversation. He asked me, what does a hooker do in rugby? I played rugby. I told him whatever it is. Then he asked me about boxing. At the time, Floyd Mayweather was going to fight Marquez. We talked about boxing. He loves boxing. He was like, you're hired. I don't need to see any papers or whatever. I'm convinced that you know what you do. And I started to work. That was my introduction into Rwanda. And I tell this story because Rwanda has played a very key role in my sports journalism career. Because when I was here, I worked for the Olympic Committee of Rwanda. I worked for Team Rwanda Cycling. I got to start writing for The Guardian in the UK from here, because I wrote a guerrilla tourism story. Then I met a former colleague who worked for Supersport in Uganda when I was really trying to work for Supersport, but I met him here, a Kenyan cameraman, and he told me we're looking for someone who can cover for us stories in Rwanda. And at the time, Rwanda had just joined the Commonwealth, and they were preparing for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014. But they had attended the ones in 2010 in New Delhi in India, but not really. This time they were going with full force, and the country had transitioned from French to English, basically. And So I did the stories. So that was my introduction into Supersport. So now I'm starting to work for a global brand like Supersport. And then in 2016 still, Rwanda was hosting the FIBA Under-18 African Championship, and FIBA was looking for a person who can write about basketball in English. Boom, I was there, recommended. Once I was recommended, I started to work for FIBA. So both my FIBA and Supersport jobs started here in Rwanda. So for me, that has been like a brief about my journey into international sports journalism.
Interesting. What were the challenges you faced back then, and what are the challenges you and other women sports journalists still face?
You know, some of the challenges is like when people see women sports journalists, they think about this is a woman. And I'm like, you need to think about it like I'm a sports journalist. Because I don't call you a male sports journalist, or I don't call you a male journalist. Why should you call me a female sports journalist? So the challenges are automatically people assume that women do not know about sports. Maybe they know about fashion, or they know about, I don't know, cooking. Yeah, which is not bad. It's good to like cooking and fashion. But, and this is a message I've been trying to say in the last 1 month, that people need to be limitless. I don't like people who put me in a box and think that, oh, I'm a woman, oh, I am black, oh, I am small, oh, I am, you know, whatever it is that they want to say. And it's those challenges basically that people think women do not know anything about sports that we have to deal with every day. But here's the thing, solution. I do what I have to do the very best way that I know how to. When I don't know something, I make sure to learn.
Dola, see you, eh?
See you.
See you, eh?
So I make sure that I learn something. So every day for me is a learning opportunity, because you cannot know everything, and from different people you learn different things. And so that's how I try to look at things. And the good thing, for example, I give you an example. I didn't know anything about rugby, but I decided to play in the rugby league in Uganda to learn about rugby so that I can report about it. Because when I played, no one can say that I don't know what I'm talking about. You see, because even when you look at international media, for example at Supersport, if you are to be hired as an analyst, you should have played the game. It's much better when you, for example, Sami Kufuor, he played for Bayern Munich in the Champions League final, lost the final in 1999 to Manchester United, but then went on to win it. So he knows what it means to lose a Champions League final and what it means to win it. It's always, you know, from that perspective that, like at the BAL, for example, someone yesterday was telling me that, you know, I'm rewatching the games, and every time I hear you talk, I feel like, wow, you actually know what you're talking about. And this is coming from a player, and they're saying that even them, when they're watching the game, they feel like, for example, there's a comment I made, and I said that there's a player who was hiding on court. Like, he was literally hiding. He's trying to avoid being given the ball, and yet we know he's the biggest player on the court. He's 6'11", but every time the ball is like coming to him, he runs away from it. He's supposed to be inside the paint, you know, get the ball, drive to the basket, get a foul, make the basket, come on the line, shoot on the free throw line. But he was hiding outside, because when he gets the ball outside, no one's going to guard him, or if they guard him, he'll now quickly throw it away. So this player told me that, I heard you analyze that, and it's the same thing that I think about. But the way he said it was like, I'm shocked you said that. So I was like, what do you mean you're shocked I said that? It's basketball. It's not rocket science. You know, and even if it's rocket science, we're seeing Elon Musk is literally changing everything about rocket science or about space. So things like that really, that we have to deal with every day. But you just have to make sure you better yourself as an individual. Every day try to be different, try to be better, and get your job done.
Interesting. You mentioned the ball. I'll come back to it. When would you say you broke the glass ceiling? Your big breakthrough. Your big break. When do you say you broke the glass ceiling?
Maybe I can say 2016, huh?
What happened in 2016?
So 2016, I was doing comms for the Chan, which was hosted here.
Okay.
It's the same year I started working for FIBA. Yeah. Yeah. I could say that.
2016.
Yeah, 2016.
That was like 5 years ago. Interesting.
5 years ago. Because that's when I also, that's when I entered. Actually, that's when I entered African football at Chan. Because right now, if you look at me, African football expert, and it's the same time I joined FIBA.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
when did I join Super Sport? Maybe 2015. Okay, yeah, it was before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So to the bar which you talked about. So they just concluded bar in Rwanda, and for those who watched it, you were the only female lady commentator amongst the 4 commentators.
Actually, we were 8, but yes,
Really?
because the others were French.
Ah, okay, interesting. That's good. How did that come about, and what were your professional takeaways?
Number one, because again, 2016, when I started working for FIBA, I was introduced to African basketball. Before, yes, a little bit, watching the Afrobasket from television, but it's not the same. So in 2016, when I started working for FIBA, I started to cover tournaments. So under 18, yes, the next year, under 16. In 2017, the women's Afrobasket in Mali. So I started to get all these contacts, and my boss kept, assigning me at all these big events. 2019, I covered the Basketball World Cup in China. That was huge because the venue where I was at in Dongguan had the toughest group. Like literally this group had title contenders: Lithuania, Australia, Senegal, and Canada. Canada at the time was coached by Nick Nurse, who had just won the NBA title with the Toronto Raptors. So it was crazy. And so that journey, 2016, led me to this point at the BAL, because the BAL, the NBA, they knew for sure that Usher, we always see her at events. She knows what she's talking about. She covers these players, And if you look at the setup of the commentators, I'm the only one who is best on the continent. So that touch was very important, The other, Malik Daho, is Ivorian, but he lives in Paris because he works for Canal Plus, or Plus if you want. Etienne is French. Q is best in South Africa, and he does basketball for Supersport. So yes, 2 of us are best on the continent. Yes. Then the rest, Lance Blancs is American. He works for ESPN as an analyst. Robbie Nock we know him more for football, for the CAF Champions League, for example, or the Chan. He's Welsh but lives in Paris. So basically, for me, it was a life-changing opportunity because I told myself that this is my chance to unbank untruths about the African continent. People think that we're just about the big 5. Come see lions, come see hippos, elephants, that's it. They don't even think that we have an arena like we have here. And so it was an opportunity to sell the continent, to show people who we are as a people. Yes, Africans are the same, but we are also different. And what is that difference that we are talking about, Can we talk about the difference between Nigeria and Cameroon? Yes, they're neighbors, but there's a difference, but also there's a similarity, If you talk about Tunisia and Egypt and Morocco, yes, they're North Africans, but they're different. If you talk about Ferroviário de Maputo from Mozambique and Petro de Luanda from Angola, yes, they speak Portuguese, but they're different, even if they're black. So many of those things, and also personal stories about the players. For example, there's a player from AS Douane in Senegal. He travels 600 kilometers from where he teaches in the east of Senegal to come to Dakar every Thursday, train on Friday with his team, play on Saturday and go again another 600 kilometers, and he was the best player in the tournament. So when you talk about stories like that, it humanizes the tournament.
Not just statistics.
Yes, not just statistics. Oh, this player scored 20 points. No. Anas Mahmoud, one of the best players of Zamalek, who won the title, he's expecting a child in the summer, literally maybe 1 month from now. And if from the way he was playing, NBA scouts were here, there were 9 NBA scouts here, and they want to sign him up for the NBA Summer League. So he has to make a tough choice. It's a career-changing moment for him. But would he rather be present when his child is born, or will he go and achieve a career highlight, like literally his entire life's dream? You know what I mean? So, when you talk about stories like that and you humanize, these stories, it's incredible. Aristide Mugabe is the face of Rwandan basketball. He lost 2 brothers and a father in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. His biggest game of his career happened on the night that the French president was in the stadium with His Excellency Paul Kagame. What more poetic justice is there than that? That his biggest game of his career that he has ever played inside the Kigali arena happened in front of Emmanuel Macron and Paul Kagame on a night when France apologized to Rwanda for their role in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Again, so these stories for me is why I feel so privileged and honored to have been here as a BAL commentator, and I don't take it for granted. About the lessons, professional lessons. Look, the NBA's involvement in Africa, they've been here 10 years, 11 years now, since 2010. Started the Basketball Without Borders. We had 20 graduates here playing at the BAL. That is incredible. Then we have a player, Mohab Yasser from Zamalek, who is attending the NBA Africa Academy in Senegal, in Saly, here on the winning team. Then you have all these players that dream of playing in the NBA, but now, because maybe some of them are old, their dreams will never come true of playing in the NBA, but they have an opportunity to play in a league that is organized by the NBA. So the level of professionalism that was here, incredible, amazing. You have the dreams, like the fruit of laying a foundation to say that you can have your own African league and feel proud to be African. And now we have all these people who are calling in saying, we want to play in Africa, blah, 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 and be part of the BAL. So for me, that is fulfilling.
Interesting. So, as an insider, who took part in the inaugural NBA tournament that's held in Kigali, Rwanda. Do break down for those who don't know, break down what the BAL was about, challenges and the milestones.
One is the BAL obviously is a partnership between FIBA and the NBA. And the NBA is literally on this journey that they started in 2010 to transform the face of African basketball. And the BAL is doing exactly that, because we're talking about a league for the very first time in the world. You have an African basketball tournament that is watched in 215 territories and countries and broadcast in 15 languages.
Simultaneously?
Yes, at the same time. It has never happened before. So this is historic for the continent. And I'm talking about people watching from as far as Brazil, Australia, whatever. People were watching the games and saying, we want to be part of that. So the second edition is going to be crazy, yeah? Now, the BAL brought together 12 teams from across the continent. 6 did not have to qualify. So, AS Saleh from Morocco, US Monastir from Tunisia, Zamalek from Egypt, Rivers Hoopers from Nigeria, Petro de Luanda from Angola, and what is that? Angola. I will see the other one. Oh, no. I don't remember the other one. Let me see. I can check. Just pause a little. Yeah, and the other one is AS Douane from Senegal. The other teams from the other 6 teams had to qualify. You have GMDC from Madagascar, Ferroviario de Maputo from Mozambique. You have Patriots from Rwanda, they had to qualify. FAP, Force de Army and Police from Cameroon. AS Police from Mali and GS Petrolier from Algeria. Those had to qualify. Obviously, when you look at the setup, those 6 countries that didn't have to qualify are like the top countries in Africa from a participation point of view. But also, really, the league is to give an opportunity to teams to play against top-tier competition. And so what they did was, we have to be serious about not having only foreign players. So the BAL decided to have 8 nationals. So where the team comes from, there have to be 8 nationals. Those people are born in that country and perhaps they live in that country, yeah, but they have to be 8 nationals. And then you have 2 players from the African continent, so from other countries on the continent, and 2 foreigners, like literally non-Africans, yeah, and that's the maximum. But you can have, for example, 4 players from Africa. It's up to you. So what happened was, for example, Rivers. Everyone knows Nigeria. Nigeria is doing an incredible job. For the very first time, you have 2 teams, men and women, going to the World Cup. But if you look at the Nigerian team, Rivers Hoopers, no, they couldn't even leave the group stages. So that speaks to the weak leagues back in Nigeria that the federation now must address, because they've been meandering around the situation and not actually addressing it, because they field players in NBA and players who play in European leagues. Yes, for the national team. You know, they don't use local players, and if they use the local players, maybe just 1 or 2. In fact, it would make news, because as we speak, you have 8 players who were drafted just last year, drafted in the NBA draft. 8, a record for the African continent from 1 country. So there's a lot of talent in Nigeria, but now the federation must think.
Nigeria.
Yes, Nigeria must think how to make the league strong, so that when they come to play in the BAL, the level is the same with other countries. Now you see countries that have a serious league like Angola, Tunisia, Egypt. They're the ones who were in the Final 4. And then obviously Patriots from Rwanda. They've done an incredible job of being professional and trying to do their very best. So those are some of the things that we are talking about. And even for the players, you know, from a professional point of view, you have a scenario where everything is on time. You know, you have to, if you say that, and I'm not saying that FIBA tournaments, they don't do that, but this time it was more serious, and especially because we were in a pandemic. So the challenges obviously were, we were in a pandemic and you don't have fans. Because that Kigali arena, if it had 10,000 fans, that would be a whole different vibe. And even for Rwanda as hosts, they would have loved to have sports tourists, you know, people who are coming to watch the BAL here as fans, you know, who are not in a bubble. It would have been different. But we managed to have over 21,000 tests, and no player, no official tested positive for COVID-19. The players had to have 8 negative tests before they could do team training. Every official had to have 4 straight negative tests before they could leave their rooms and do whatever it is that brought them to the tournament. So it was very, very serious. Every day we were tested. You have to wear your mask, you have to sanitize, you have to social distance. It was really an incredible journey, and very, very proud of Rwanda for hosting this event.
Interesting. What do you think are the ripple effects of the BAL on the sports professionally, for professional players and the team, and young ones who want to play basketball professionally?
I can say that now people are looking at basketball in a different setup, yeah? Because, for example, the BAL gave every team money to prepare for the event and paid them. Yeah, so you have to pay salaries of players and coaches, and you have to produce a bank statement showing that you actually paid the money. Sometimes in Africa it's a problem, to pay on time. So the BL is very serious. Yes, it's very serious about this, paying and being professional about everything. So, for example, uniforms. Every team got their so you cannot say, "Oh, I forgot my uniform." No. How? Everything they found here, everything was shipped in. You have clear guidelines, what to wear, when to wear it. For example, in the bubble, the players had to wear their t-shirts. They're grey t-shirts, but they have your logo at the front and the name of the team you come from. So look, all of this, and the fact that the players also understood the seriousness when they came in. If you check, on the BAL social media platforms, when they flew in, they found everything in their rooms. Everything from t-shirts to warmers to to whatever you can think about was presented to them. So everything has to be uniform. This is broadcast live in the entire world, so we cannot afford to say, "Oh, these Africans." No. Everything has to be professional.
Interesting. For young, especially young African girls, must have been proud of seeing an African woman running commentary during the bow and performing the final rites during the closing ceremony of the bow. Any words of encouragement to them and to women who have dreams that include breaking the glass ceiling?
The glass ceiling. Look, it is. The more I think about it, it is an incredible moment for me as a person, and I'm extremely very proud and honored and privileged to have commentated and give a female voice to the BAL. And obviously I received like thousands of messages, people congratulating me and saying how proud they are of me, but also for the women, really, that medal ceremony, it was watched across the entire world. I got messages from Brazil, from Australia, I don't know, China, everyone is telling me whatever and congratulating me. But the message to young girls, again, like I told you earlier, is to be limitless. Do not let people put you in a box. Oh, because Dolapo is from Nigeria, so for example, he cannot work in China. No, when you wake up every day, you have to see how to make yourself better in everything that you do. It doesn't mean that I don't fail. I failed thousands of times, but I have to wake up and try again. If yesterday I made a mistake, what can I improve today? What can I say? What can I tell myself? What can I ask the people around me who know more than me? What can I learn from them? So every time I'm listening to anyone and everyone, I must learn something by the time we finish the conversation. Doesn't matter if the conversation is 2 minutes or 1 hour or 3 hours. I must learn something new by the time I go home. So the message to the young guys is to be limitless. Number one is to follow their dreams. If you want to do something, go for it. No one should ever tell you that, it's too hard to learn Portuguese, or oh my God, how can you speak 18 languages, or how is it even possible for you to know that much basketball? No, it's just a matter of work. And it's like what they always say about putting in those 10,000 hours. You have to. There are no shortcuts. You have to believe in the process. Every time, believe in the process. Take it one day at a time. You'll get there.
Interesting.
And pray to God. That's very important.
You mentioned 18 languages. So, for those who don't know, you're a polyglot who speaks about 18 languages. How did that come about?
So, most if not all of the languages I have learned is through immersion.
Okay.
Yes. So, like, remember what I told you how I grew up. One neighbor is Congolese, so they speak Lingala in their house. Or the Swahili that they speak has Lingala French and Swahili itself. I remember when I was playing at university for UCU Lady Cannons, later after I left Makerere, we had Kenyans in the team. So I picked up the Kenyan Sheng, as they call it. So this Sheng has English in it. So what the Congolese put French, the Kenyans put English. So for example, if you want to say, are you coming? If you want to ask, in real Swahili you can ask, unakuja. In Congolese Swahili you say, unakuya. Yeah? In Kenyan Swahili, you say unakam. You see, so you just have to learn. For example, like you just listen. For me, I just listen. And to be honest, yes, I am a linguist. I'm a polyglot, so it comes very easily for me. For example, just because I started covering a lot of tournaments in Angola and in Mozambique, I picked up Portuguese. Yeah, because I'm not going to go and tell, my colleagues that, I failed to do this story because these players, they speak Portuguese. I can't. I have to find a way of, yes, the first one I will grab someone and tell them, yo, come and help me translate. But with time, I'm listening. I'm also listening to the words. What do they mean? How do they conjugate them? Then I can also take like an app and start to teach myself the conjugation, because the Latina languages, they are complicated. You must know which is female, which is male, object, or whatever it is. And just like that. Even Kinyarwanda, that's how I learned Kinyarwanda, because I came here to Rwanda and I realized that the athletes, they don't speak English. So I must learn Kinyarwanda. But because of my Bantu history, I come from the Bantu part of Africa, it's very easy for me. So for example, if I go and live in Durban, 3 months is enough. I'll speak Zulu. Yes.
Interesting. So the final question, what's the title of the book you are currently reading?
That's a very important question, because I almost went to buy a book yesterday.
Really?
Yes, I'm reading a book about the U.S. women's national team, football, soccer. Yes, but it was updated, and now it involves their 2019 World Cup victory.
Written by?
That's a good question. Wait, let me show you.
Okay, it's called what?
The National Team.
The National Team.
Yes. Let me find it.
By?
Caitlin Murray.
Okay. Okay.
That's the name of it.
Nice talking with you, Usher
Nice talking
Komugisha.
to you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.